Hi, I'm Jeff Smith from Apigee. Just want to walk you through a simple example of exposing an SAP backend, a standard SAP backend, and converting a JSON or a URL encoded form request into a SOAP SAP backend request. So with SAP, there's a couple of exposure options. You've got your SAP system on the back end, and you can either use a mediated web service, the SAP API integration server, or you can use a web service where the web service client can access APIs that have been exposed through that platform. You have to license it and have to use it. There's another option of using the standard SAP and exposing a single SOAP interface that you can then consume via a web service or an app. And what we're going to show you here is the use of Apigee in between that to allow multiple devices to consume it, but also convert that SOAP XML response into something much better and easier and lighter weight for mobile devices, something called REST and JSON. So just a quick screenshot to give you some context before we go to the live demo. What we're showing here is a trace of a call, and along this line on the top is the request that comes in and the policies that get applied along the way. And then on the response, you can see the various policies that get applied. And then you can open and close, look at the headers and the payload and the variables that we're going to take out. The tool we're going to use to place the request is something called Postman. It's just a plugin or an app in Chrome, and we've loaded up the option to create a sales record using JSON or using web form URL encoded. And we'll show you that tool as well. The important thing, though, is if you start exposing your SAP backend and you're delivering mobile apps, it's very important to have a lot of visibility and analytics around this. How are they being used? Which apps are using them? How is the backend performing? What's the latency and error rate? You can even go as far as something like Apigee Mobile Analytics, which will tell you anything about crashes and performance and how people are using the app. So as you look at exposing these kind of services and building out a mobile app solution for your employees, you definitely want to have sufficient visibility in how the system's working. So this is how we did it. As I mentioned in the trace, the app makes a request and there's a number of policies applied, and then likewise on the response. So I'll show this in more detail in the live demo, but the first thing we do is we take from the header a variable and understand if this is a JSON type or a URL encoded form. And if it's a form, we extract variables from that form, the information about the sales request. If it's JSON, we extract it from JSON. And then we package that up into a template for SOAP, drop the variables in, and send it off to the server. And likewise, the reverse is true. On the back, on the response, we assign a header to the response. We strip the SOAP details. So we take the SOAP envelope off and just expose the XML, and then we do a simple XML to JSON transformation so that the app can consume it in a JSON format. Here's the actual policy that was used to do that. As you can see here, we're calling something called extract variable, and all we're looking for is extracting variables from the header. And this is the application type. Is it JSON or is it a form? If it was a form, as you can see here, we're taking doc type, sales org, distribution channel, division, and partner role out of that request, and then we're going to later then put that into the SOAP envelope. So if the header was JSON, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to use something called JPath or JSON path to take those variables, exact same variables, but they were submitted as a JSON request. And then you can see here the actual SOAP message, the template, and the variables that get dropped into that. You can see those variables down here, doc type, sales org, distribution channel. Then likewise on the response, we use cores. We assign a header to the response so that it's an XML application, so that then when we strip the SOAP details, take off the SOAP envelope and only pass XML back, the XML to JSON policy can run. But you can see here when we strip the SOAP details, we're using another feature of Apigee to use XSLT, and we just basically have an XSL rule that is taking out that envelope portion. Quite simple, quite easy to do, no coding involved. And then finally, as you can see here, quite simple policy to just convert that final XML to JSON and give it back to the client. So let's take a look at how that works in practice. So here we are in the Apigee UI, and I'm going to start a trace session so we can look at that request. We'll switch to Postman. And as I said, there's a JSON request and a form encoded request. So first we're going to do the JSON request. I'm going to send that to the back end. We can see that the response comes back in JSON. We're going to do the same thing with the form. You can see here are the form parameters. We're going to send that, and we can see the same type of response comes back even though the request was in a different form. And if we go in then and take a look at how that's actually worked, we can see again, just as we showed on the PowerPoint, that we're going to extract a variable from the header. In this case, we can see that was web form encoded, in which case we're going to extract the variables from the form, the doc type, the sales org, the distribution channel, just like we said we would do. The JSON rule won't get used, and then as we said, the actual XML SOAP payload gets created and sent to the back end. Okay. And then on the way out, cores, we assign a header to the response, like I said we're going to do to change it to XML, not SOAP. We take away those SOAP details, so you can see on the left that the envelope is there, and then on the right it's just the core XML from inside of it, and then we do the transformation from XML to JSON, and you see the payload is JSON there. In the case that the request came in, we'll look again here at the extract variable from the headers. You can see it was JSON, so we're going to use the JSON rule, and you can see the same variables are extracted, and then the rest of the process is exactly the same. It's as simple as that. The steps that you take to do this is a matter of minutes. It's no code involved. You can take advantage of things like XSLT. So you can see that taking that ERP back end and making it possible for mobile apps to consume those services is quite simple with Apigee in the middle. Above and beyond this, you can add policies around caching and quotas and stuff to protect your back end, to offload your back end and things like that. There's a lot of other capabilities, but those are the beginning points. And as you start to use it, like I mentioned, you'd want more details on analytics, and you can actually add in custom analytics that tell you which devices are using it, how it's being used, etc. So this is just a simple example to show the extract variable and assign message and things like we've done in the other videos. Thanks so much.